Well, I was going to use the stand, then I realized the live stream camera is right here, so we'll stick up here. Good to see everybody again. We're going to go to the Philippines for just a little while, a few minutes this morning. There we go. Most of you know where the Philippines are. Why the Philippines? This congregation has been very active in the work in the Philippines for a number of years. I didn't count up before I got up here, but I think we support somewhere around 20 men in the Philippines. And we've been doing that for a number of years. The Philippines is a work where there's a lot of interest in the gospel. Radio programs seem to do well in the Philippines. And Brother Larry has said the Philippines are like America was in the 1950s. There are a lot of opportunities there. There are a lot of preachers to go over there. And because of that, I never have felt a pressing need to go to the Philippines. I've been to Vietnam, a couple other places before, but not the Philippines because a number of men do go there already. But since we have such an active work in the Philippines, it's been pressing upon me over the last several years that someone needs to go over there from Douglas Hills. And so a couple weeks ago, several people and myself went over there. You helped support me, and you helped support Wyatt Taylor. You were involved in that work, along with the work in the Philippines, and I want to just sort of walk you through that. So the island in the Philippines that we went to, and there are thousands of islands, it's the island Palawan. It is one of the major islands. It's a beautiful island. Here, if you can sort of see all those dots, those are the churches that we visited. So over the course of 10 days, 9 preaching days, we visited 17 different churches. You'll see our itinerary in just a moment. It was very active. We were very busy during the course of the week. I wish I'd gone over there to see some of the beautiful scenery. There were only 2 times I saw the ocean. This time when we're driving right by it, and actually 3 times. 2 times there were baptisms that we saw in the ocean. It's a beautiful island. You have the ocean on one side, each side of the island, then you have in the very middle some mountains. There are a lot of lush green areas, and a couple of churches we had to walk almost through a jungle to get to those churches, about a mile, very remote. People who went over there, Wyatt Taylor, Kimberly Lambert, Teresa, Kenny Embry, and myself. Again, you supported me and Wyatt. Teresa went over with private funds. Kimberly Lambert went over with private funds too. In fact, Kimberly went over there because Teresa and she were hanging out one night, and Teresa was just talking about the trip, and Kimberly goes, well, could I go? She's like, well, yeah, sure. And she went over there, and she did some fun things because she was going on her dime, but she also helped. She encouraged the saints, and she taught a couple of classes too. You'll see that in just a few moments. When we arrived in Puerto Princesa City, which is the major capital, Palawan, the saints were there, a bunch of preachers were there, and they had this nice banner. They really made you feel welcome when you showed up. They were very encouraging. Here are the Filipino brethren that we hung out with over the course of the 10 days that we were over there. Jonathan Sapatula, who is not a preacher that we help support. But boy, he was just a wonderful, solid, grounded Christian. He preaches the gospel. I've seen in the reports over the years his name show up in several places. But he traveled with us everywhere we went. He took his vehicle. Dario Belvez, who is one of the rocks of the work there, and he's one of the rocks that we desperately depend upon. He has shown himself to be trustworthy. And he's one that we look to for the wisdom and how to do some of the things that are done over there. Henry Lim, who was another one of the traveling companions, just a delightful Christian. And then Manny Abistit. He is the father-in-law of Dario Belvez, an older, wise saint. He is an elder in one of the churches there. It was a joy to travel around with these brethren. So let's get to work. The adventure starts. Wyatt and I had our Indiana Jones hats on as we started up. Let me tell you what we were going over there to do. Twofold purpose: to meet the men that we help support and to assess their character. And second of all, to visit the churches and see the work that they are engaged in. The itinerary, this is the itinerary. What you need to know is, starting on Sunday, we left here, Louisville, on Thursday night, the 18th. We lost Friday completely in the travel, and we arrived in Puerto Princesa City about 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. That evening, we did a radio program, Wyatt and me and Kenny Embry. Kenny Embry was also another person with us on the team. Kenny was a member here years ago. Someone paid for him to go and to help in the work as well. But from Sunday on, we are visiting churches, a church in the morning and a church in the afternoon. And we're there for about 3 hours each time. So we're moving. The only day we did not visit 2 churches in one day was on Tuesday when we were traveling that morning to get to where we needed to go. So we hit 17 churches. And we were worn out over the course of the week going. I brought some cards, just thought, hey, maybe in the evening, since we don't have anything big going on, we may want to get together and play some cards. Everybody was worn out in the evening. Everybody was just like crashing at 9 o'clock at night. We were going the whole time, so that's the last 2 days of the itinerary. Church in the morning and then a church in the afternoon. I want to show you the meeting places where the Christians met, just to give you a little better appreciation for what we have here. Some of the places were really pretty good. None of them had air conditioning. All right. A lot of them would, well, actually, the first one here had air conditioning. But it was so hot, it was difficult to cool the place. Most of the places had fans. This was one of the meeting houses that we met in. It's a pretty nice one. Most of the meeting houses, since they did not have air conditioning, had big open windows. Here's one that a typhoon went through, I think in 2019, and took the roof off of it. They have tarps over the top of it, but it serves the purpose, and the brethren meet there. Here's another place, see again the big windows that are very helpful, the breeze that comes through. One of the major ingredients that, materials that people used in building these are bamboo walls. So you'll see that pretty prevalently. Tin roof, which one of the days we were at a place and it was raining like crazy. At each of the places I'll tell you that we went to in the morning and the afternoon, Wyatt preached, I preached, and then Kenny preached. So the people came and listened to all 3 of us preach, and then we had a men's class and a ladies' class at each of those places for the most part. I taught the men's class, I taught all the men's classes, and I taught all the men's classes on elderships. That's one of the things that in the Philippines, there are a lot of churches that don't have elders. Well, in America, there are a lot of churches that don't have elders. So I decided for the men's class, every class I'm going to hit, you need to establish elders. And if you don't have men who are able to serve right now, you need to be thinking about men who can serve in the near future and make it a goal. Teresa, she taught, I think, 14 of the ladies' classes. And she taught on gentleness. Kimberly Lambert taught 2 of the ladies' classes, and she dealt with the issue of forgiveness. Here we are traipsing to one of the churches. Inside of the church buildings, some of them have benches, so you have these seats that have a back and a seat. It's not padded, but a little more of what we're used to. Same here, a little more rustic, but a lot of them just had a place that you sit down. And sometimes you just had bamboo that you could sit on. And that's what you did for 3 hours as you gathered together with one another. And then the churches just had a lot of people there. There were some churches that had maybe 20, but there were some churches, there are a lot of people who showed up. People were outside waiting to hear the Word of God preached. So that was the environment that we saw as we were preaching there. I want to introduce you to the preachers that on Palawan that Douglas Hills helps to support. There are other preachers in the Philippines that were on other islands that we couldn't go to this trip. I'm just introducing you to the ones that we help on Palawan. Dario Belvez is a gospel preacher there who really works 2 radio programs. Douglas Hills supports one of those radio programs. The other radio program is privately supported, but Dario is the workhorse. Dario travels all around the island. And what impressed me is that he knows where he's going when he goes places, and he knows the people, right? So this isn't something that he just sort of figured out, hey, the Americans are coming, I've got to make sure I get this done. Dario knows people. In fact, Dario was the one who came up with the itinerary. When I contacted him, I didn't know how to go about this. And I said, you're the contact guy. Where do we stay? Who are the people I need to contact? He goes, I will take care of all this. And he did. He was a workhorse. Henry Lim, Francisco Him, I think Lim is what he puts in his reports. Just a wonderful gentleman. He was Delasio Liga, who is a preacher there within the Puerto Princesa City area. We recently sent him some money for medication that he would need. And then I'll slow down just for a minute to talk about Marcelino Suye. If you notice in this picture, he looks rather sad. The Saturday night when we arrived, his 19-year-old son was killed in a motorcycle accident. And so when we visited his church, obviously he was very subdued. And in fact, I wasn't going to get his picture because of what he and his family had gone through, but he really wanted the picture made, and he wanted to express his thanks to the congregation for the support that you had given him. But that's the reason why he looked sad. He just lost his 19-year-old son. Bobby Cabanza and several of his family members, he preaches up in one of the more rural congregations up on a mountainside. Orlando Sumabe is the gentleman there with his daughter and his wife and 2 Americans. Adencio Colini is another one of the gospel preachers that we help support. I was really impressed with all of these men. He was one of the ones I was really impressed with, and this is his family. And then Judson Montemore. You'll see more about him at the end of the talk as we wrap things up. But I will tell you several of his family members, and we've been supporting him for over 20 years. Several of his family members came up to us and said, "Thank you so much for supporting our father so that he could take care of us. I want you to know your support is deeply appreciated. And what the Lord is doing and your submission to that is very, very important." Danilo Belvez, who is Dario's younger brother, he is preaching the gospel as well, and these are his family. And I can make these pictures available to you if you'd like to see them. The 10 days, we were just spent preaching the whole time. Saturday night, after traveling 36 hours, we did a radio program, and then we preached. There's Wyatt. This is Wyatt's motivational speaker photo. You know, it looks like he's WyattTaylor.com, motivational speaker. But Wyatt did a wonderful job. He was just, his teaching was very good. The brethren appreciated him. Sunday night, we did another radio program, and then we just hit the road. And we are traveling to all the different churches, meeting with the saints, preaching to them, various places. As I said, I did teach some men's classes along with preaching some sermons. And this is one of the men's classes. People gathered there. This is another one with Henry, who is translating. And that's just an interesting experience that you've got to pace yourself on speaking through someone who's translating. Again, another men's class. Here's Kimberly Lambert teaching a ladies' class. And here's Teresa with a ladies' class. Everyone is appreciative. The women were extremely appreciative. I think it was very helpful for the women to have a female teacher go over there and spend time with them and teach them, because I couldn't get to Teresa for like 10 minutes after she got finished talking. I mean, they were up there just talking to her and getting pictures with her. The women were very, very hungry. There, Teresa is teaching one of the children's classes. We mentioned the baptisms. We witnessed 106 baptisms. I was talking to Ron Holbrook. He said that that's not the norm. He said he's been over there where he's seen over the course of a month 3 baptisms and sometimes 300. So we were very blessed to see the people who were baptized. Many were baptized in a baptistry, which is somewhat more of what we are used to. But some were baptized. This was a hot springs that was near a church building. And by the way, you notice that saints met somewhere near some kind of source of water. And that played a part in the whole equation. This, of course, is the ocean that some people are being baptized. Another shot. That's our 2 excursions to the ocean that we had. And then rivers. That was a place oftentimes where people were baptized. Streams. That was another place. Just find a place that's deep enough. And if you notice, the person on the left-hand side, they're holding the feet down. That's because, it's pretty tight quarters, and by the time someone goes down, the feet oftentimes go up. And so they'd have someone there, if that was one of the dangers, to keep the feet down, to keep that from happening. And people lined up after the baptism. There's another one there. All right. Several of you asked about the food really quickly. We did not lose any weight over there, which is remarkable because we were sweating like crazy. I found a place, it was a coffee shop that had caramel macchiato, so I was in good shape most days. This is the coffee shop, and the coffee shop owner, really, it was very good, very refreshing to start the day off with that. We had a lot of rice products, rice noodles, rice cakes, rice, and there was a lot of rice that was there. Spring rolls, fried chicken, and look, you have rice, spring rolls, and fried chicken, you can survive really well. Each of the churches had a potluck, so we didn't eat anywhere else for the most part. There are a couple places that we would, but most of the time we just eat there with the saints, and they would provide the meals for us, and the meals were wonderful. These were hot wings that this one lady made that were fantastic. So the food was really good. All right, let me just close, and then after this, Wyatt's going to speak for a few minutes, and I'll come back up and just sort of wrap this up. I know there's a lot here. I just want to give you a feel for what happened. If you'd like the PowerPoint, I'll love to share it with you. I want to just introduce you to a lot of the people just very quickly. Wyatt Taylor was a rock star over there. I mean, all of the young ladies wanted to get a picture with Wyatt. And Kara knows about this, and she was okay with this, because this was a phenomenon that happened at one church after another. I mean, they were just coming up. Some of them asked him if he was a military man. But here, and then you have to look closely, but I just snapped this shot in the background, several of the ladies, and here's another one where he's just like, I told Teresa, I said, isn't that funny? She goes, are you jealous? I said, no. But I mean, we couldn't get away from it. I mean, he was just like this magnet over there. This was the Bald Men's Club. We're going to start the hair club for men in the Philippines over there. This dog was right at our feet when we were preaching, and he was like, I'm not moving. This is my spot. But he just sat there the whole time. And there were just a number of pictures of the saints in the churches that are your brothers and sisters. Kay Matthews, this is your twin sister in the Philippines. If you know Kay's personality, this lady was just like Kay. In fact, Teresa, when I met her and saw some things, and later Teresa and I were talking like, did you think, yeah, that's Miss Kay. She was exactly like Miss Kay. At one point, I'll just tell you this, at one point, people had been sitting for a long time. I think Wyatt was preaching. He said, stand up for a minute and just stretch for a minute. And she was outside the window. She goes, stretch, move around. Like that. I said, that is Miss Kay. She was just a delightful woman. All of them were. Here's a family. You can count 9 people on this motorcycle with a platform. Most people walk where they're going. Right? Most people don't have transportation. This young man, I took a picture of him. I taught one of the classes on the elders. And I have to tell you, I taught that class 17 times. It gets a little long after a while. And you start thinking, is this resonating at all? And this young guy came up. And he said, because of your passion in talking about elders, I want to be an elder one day. Well, that gave me a little more juice. Different shots of people again outside of the buildings, some small churches, some decent-sized churches and good-sized churches, all filled with people who are trying to serve the Lord just like you are and just like I am. This has nothing to do with the work, but it was interesting. In order to go from Manila to Palawan, we had to fly on a regional airline. Delta over to Seoul, Korea, Korean Air to Manila, but then from Manila to Puerto Princesa City, Air Asia. Can you see what's on that sign? Okay. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. That's on a major airline. And then over on the other side, for God so loved the world. So there are people who are trying to share the word of God in quiet ways. Last shot, a very welcome shot after traveling for 12 days. This is a shot of the screen on my plane right in front of me when we entered U.S. airspace. And you start saying, thank you, Lord. So I'm going to step aside for a minute. Wyatt?
Thank you. Thanks, Mark, and for a few minutes to just kind of share my thoughts as well. More than anything, just wanted to say how grateful I am to have been able to take this trip, for the support and the encouragement of this congregation. Taking a trip like this is something I'd wanted to do for a while. Thought would be important for my own personal growth, and Kara and I had kind of been talking about it and exploring opportunities for it. But this year has not really gone to plan for me either. At the beginning of the year when Mark first asked if I'd be interested in this, I was interested, but didn't think, given my work schedule, that it was possible that I could take a trip like this, take that much time off. And then one morning in March, my employer made that a little bit easier for me and laid me off. And so when the shock of that kind of wore off, I immediately came to realize that this may have been God's way of sort of nudging me in the direction of the place I needed to be and the thing I needed to be doing. So I definitely see God's providence active through that and providing me this opportunity, but very grateful for it. And, I was very concerned at the outset about a lot of physical things, how the travel would go, how my body would adapt, how I'd do on such a heavy teaching schedule and stuff. But I think the hand of God was definitely with us to make sure everything went smoothly and that the teaching was fruitful as well. A couple of notes just on the people. I'd echo everything Mark said. It's a very humble and quiet people that we encountered there, lovely people. Obviously, the young women have great taste. But very, very lovely people, very hospitable and glad to see us. I was struck with how well they sang, maybe not technically super well, but very enthusiastically. Had a small sort of catalog of songs they sang, but they sang them very energetically. And I think the experience for me helped me see sort of the gospel and worship stripped down to its fundamentals, kind of separated from the traditions and the culture that we have here, to think about what's really essential and what's really needed in those messages of the gospel and in the kind of way that we worship. It's a poor country, and as Mark showed some of the conditions, it's powerful, of course, to see those living conditions, and to not just see it, but to be sort of immersed in it during the day. Once we left the hotels, it was very much, we were sort of subject to those conditions. But it made me, of course, appreciate coming home to the comforts and the luxuries we have here. But more than that, more than the physical, I think it was the spiritual luxuries that I have taken for granted that this trip really brought home to me. We here have a church where we can be fed all of the spiritual meat that we can eat. We have a lot of really great teaching and a lot of depth, a lot of great Bible students around us. And what I took from visiting these churches is there's a deep, I have a concern about the level of spiritual maturity that's present there. They haven't had an opportunity to have as much deep teaching there. We saw 106 souls baptized, and that's wonderful. But I found myself wondering as we left, what happens next? What is the kind of level of teaching that they'll have and the sort of push that they'll get to mature as Christians? I understand why we structured the trip the way we did, and I think it was good. But in the future, I'd love to have more time in fewer places, opportunities to get deeper into teaching and to build deeper relationships. The men that Mark showed that we traveled around with, Dario and Manny and Henry and Jonathan, were great. And even they had a hunger for more teaching and seemed to really connect with the lessons that we were delivering because they just were hungry for more teaching. So I hope we can find ways to support these brethren with that sort of deeper level of teaching. There's obviously barriers of language, there's barriers of technology and internet access and things like that. But Mark, by the end of the trip, was already talking about ways that we could do more to kind of provide deeper teaching for some of the evangelists and stuff. So hopefully that will come to pass. So just to conclude, for me, the trip was a wonderful experience for me, overwhelming in a way. It's been hard for me over the last couple of weeks to sort of put words to what I take away from this. I think definitely a deeper appreciation for the material and the spiritual blessings that fill my life day to day. Much deeper respect for people who take these kind of trips and go to places that are oftentimes much more difficult than the Philippines. The Philippines, is relatively pro-American, relatively free, a lot of advantages there. A deeper love and appreciation for Mark and Teresa and Kimberly and Kenny. As Mark said, the women loved Teresa and Kimberly both and really appreciated those classes, you could tell. And spending this time with Mark was really great for me as well. I've known Mark for forever and see the work he does here, but to see him in that context was really encouraging and helpful. I mean, we know he's a ball of energy and he sort of never wears out, but to see him be so positive and adaptable and dedicated, not going to miss any opportunity to teach or to share God's word. He wasn't cutting any corners on this. And, he mentioned that elders class he did like 17 times. I was there for almost all of them. He did not wane in his energy. The 17th was as good as the first. And that's who he is. So I appreciate him and his example and his encouragement and coaching of me throughout this. I don't know if I'm going to have another opportunity to do a trip like this. If I do, if it'll be to the Philippines, I don't really know. But what I take away from this really is just to help me see beyond my context. We all maybe need to see that sometimes, to just think that there's a broader world out there, even within the church. So I've been focused in the last couple of years in teaching here around the Growing in Grace effort, and that's good, and it's an effort designed to kind of build up the brethren. But there's also a sense in which we're called to go into the world. And the simple gospel message is powerful. It's a needed one. And this trip inspired me to maybe do more, find more opportunities even here locally to share that and not be quite so focused within the walls of this church. So again, very grateful for the opportunity and for the chance to kind of share my thoughts.
All right, I want to conclude, and you've been very patient. I know there are a lot of pictures here, and one of the things I learned early on in going overseas and presenting things, these are real people that we have met. At the end of the day, it's a photograph to you. Maybe it's a photograph that has a little bit of meaning, but I just wanted to give you a good overview of what we did and the good work that Wyatt and Kenny and Teresa and Kimberly did as well. Judson Montemore. On Saturday when we arrived, there were a lot of preachers there, a lot of saints at the airport waiting for us. Judson introduced himself, and he had this picture. The picture is of the ladies' Bible class here from 20 years ago. Here's the date, March 13th, 2023. He has held on to this picture for 20 years. And the accompanying card. I wasn't obviously in the ladies' class, but my guess is what they did was similar to what we do when we do a good deed. You do it, you're thankful for it, it's done, and then you move on and do other deeds, and you forget about it. What impressed me here is that one deed was not forgotten by him or by his wife. What a simple deed to take a photograph. What a simple deed to write a card. And yet that deed had a profound effect on him to the point that 20 years later, he still has it and he's still showing it to me. And he rushed up with me to me to show it to him. Which reminds us of the text that Matthew read just a few minutes ago. Just a cup of cold water in his name given. You will not lose your reward. This is a small but profound example to me that you don't know how your actions impact other people and the power to which you change their lives with something that you just did and you moved on. And to the ladies, of the congregation, I commend you for that. And I just want you to know the actions that you do, they're remembered. And it was Brother Montemore's family in particular that came up and kept telling us, thank you for supporting our father. But it was not just him. All the preachers were appreciative of what God has done in their lives and how this congregation has helped. I don't say that so that we can pat ourselves on the back and say how wonderful we are. We are simply a vessel that God has used at the moment. But I'm thankful that he has used this church. And I'm thankful that you have contributed to the point that he can use this church to support so many people, not only in Palawan or the Philippines, but around the world, who are preaching. So my exhortation to you is keep doing small things, because the small things that you may do may not be small to the person that they are done to. We're going to stand in just a moment and be led in a closing prayer. Encourage everyone to think about their life, think about the service that they are giving and the ways that they're contributing in the service of God. If you need to become a Christian, then as we sing, come forward. We'd love to help you in any way that we can. If you need prayers, then come forward. We'd love to pray with you, whatever your need may be. Come now, while we stand, while we sing. The call comes ringing o'er the restless waves. Send the light. Send the light. There are souls to rescue. There are souls to save. Send the light. Send the light. Send the light. The blessed gospel light. Let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light. Let it shine forevermore. We have heard the Macedonian call today. Send the light. Send the light. There the golden offering at the cross we lay. Send the light. Send the light. Send the light. The blessed gospel light. Let it shine from shore to shore. Send the light, the blessed gospel light. shore to shore. Send the